Welcome back, everyone, to Tech Explorers, episode 126. I'm Jenny, here as always with the brilliant Mark.
Hey, Jenny. Hey, everyone. Brilliant might be pushing it a bit, but I'm definitely excited for today's topic. Very excited, actually.
Your time's always excited, Mark. That's your default setting. But I have a feeling this one is particularly up your alley. I was doing some reading about this company, Functionland. They seem to be making some rather bold claims about shaking up cloud computing and AI.
Oh, Functionland. Yes, you are so right, Jenny. I've been following them quite closely. They're basically diving headfirst into the world of decentralized infrastructure. Think, taking on the giants like AWS and Google Cloud, but with a completely different playbook, you know?
Okay, decentralized infrastructure. That sounds complex, and maybe a little buzzwordy. Break it down for us mere mortals, Mark. What exactly are they doing that's so different from the cloud we already know?
Right, sorry, getting ahead of myself. Standard procedure for me. So fundamentally, they're leveraging concepts called DePIN and DePAI. Let's start with DePIN. That stands for Decentralized Physical Infrastructure Networks.
DePIN. Got it. Sounds like a mouthful.
It is, but the idea is pretty neat. Instead of relying on these enormous centralized data centers owned by a few big corporations, imagine a network made up of lots and lots of smaller devices. Think specialized hardware nodes people can run from their homes, or maybe a small office.
Okay, so like harnessing unused computing power from many small places instead of one massive one kind of reminds me of those distributed computing projects from years ago, like SETI at home, but for actual cloud services?
Exactly. That's a great analogy, Jenny. People contribute resources, primarily storage space and processing power, using Functionland's specific hardware, these little boxes called FX blocks nodes. And, crucially, in return for providing these resources, the network rewards them, usually with crypto tokens native to the platform.
FX blocks nodes. .box. Okay, checking that box. And the other acronym you mentioned, DPAI? Is that just DEPIN but wearing an AI hat?
Pretty much. DePi, Decentralized Physical AI, applies that same distributed shared resource model specifically to AI-related tasks. So think training complex AI models, running inference tasks, or performing large-scale data analysis. Instead of needing a super powerful, very expensive server cluster in one place, you distribute the workload across this network of FX blocks nodes.
And you mentioned privacy implications?
Yes, that's a potentially significant aspect. Because the data processing can happen in a distributed way, maybe even closer to the source, there's less need to pool massive amounts of sensitive data in one central location owned by a single company. This could be really important for certain AI applications, especially with growing concerns about data sovereignty and privacy.
Privacy benefits and potentially lower costs. I can definitely see the appeal on paper. But Mark, is this just a theoretical vision, or are they actually making headway? Building a global network of hardware sounds like a monumental undertaking.
That's the really interesting part. It seems to be moving beyond just theory. According to recent reports I saw, they've actually shipped over 1,000 of those FX blocks nodes already. And here's a kicker. Before their native token, FULA, even launched, they apparently had a wait list with over 100,000 people wanting to get involved and run a node.
100,000 people on a wait list? Wow, okay. That signals some serious interest. So people are buying these FX blocks devices and plugging them in?
That's the model. They buy the hardware, connect it, and become part of the network supply side, earning tokens for the resources they provide. It taps into that desire some people have to participate more directly in the infrastructure they use, and maybe earn something on the side.
Interesting. What about the business side then? Are they generating revenue, or is it all potential and token value right now?
Well, the projections are certainly ambitious. They're reportedly aiming for something like $14 million in annual recurring revenue within the next 18 months, and their longer-term target, looking out towards 2030, is apparently $100 million ARR.
Okay. $14 million ARR in 18 months is a serious goal for any startup, let alone one building physical infrastructure in a decentralized way. Who are they targeting with this? Individual users? Businesses?
It seems like they're primarily targeting businesses, particularly those looking for more affordable storage and compute power. Think Web3 companies, AI startups, maybe even small to medium enterprises that are feeling the pinch of traditional cloud costs. The healthcare case study we might talk about later suggests they're aiming for enterprise clients too.
Right, because they're entering a massive market. Cloud and AI infrastructure, we're talking hundreds of billions of dollars dominated by a few major players. How do they differentiate themselves, even from other decentralized projects?
That's a key question. You have established decentralized storage projects like Filecoin, which focuses almost entirely on, well, storage. Then you have platforms like Akash Network, which are more geared towards decentralized compute. Functionland seems to be positioning itself as a more integrated, perhaps full-stack solution.
Full stack? Meaning?
Meaning they're aiming to offer storage, compute, potentially CDN, content delivery network, capabilities, and even things like decentralized firewall services, all under one roof. And critically, they seem to be building it with AI integration, the DePIN part, in mind from the get-go, rather than bolting it on later.
So like a one-stop shop for various decentralized web services? And the big draw is the cost?
Significantly cheaper, is the claim. Some reports I've seen mention potential cost savings of up to 60% compared to using equivalent services from traditional providers like AWS or Google Cloud. Now, if that holds true at scale, that's an asterisk huge times draw.
60%. Okay, that would definitely get CFOs listening. But Mark, let's play devil's advocate here. That saving has to come from somewhere, right? What about reliability and performance? Can a network of distributed FX blocks nodes times match the kind of uptime and consistent speed we expect from, say, AWS S3 storage or EC2 compute instances?
That is times multi-million-dollar question, Jenny. You're hitting on one of the core challenges for all DePIN projects. Consistency and reliability are harder to guarantee when your infrastructure is made up of diverse hardware in different locations with varying internet connections. A traditional data center has optimized power, cooling, networking, and on-site staff.
Right. So how does Functionland address that? Is it just hope for the best?
No. Hopefully not just hope. They use redundancy and distribution techniques. Data isn't stored on just one node. It's replicated across multiple nodes. So if one node goes offline, the data or service should still be available from others. They likely have algorithms to route requests to healthy and performant nodes, but it's inherently more complex to manage than a centralized system. There's a trade-off there between the potential cost savings, decentralization benefits, and the potential for variability in service quality, especially early on.
Okay, so reliability is a known challenge they're working on. What about security? Isn't having hardware spread out everywhere potentially riskier? Someone's FX blocks in their basement getting hacked versus a secure AWS facility?
Another excellent point, and definitely a concern often raised. The argument from the decentralized camp is that the distribution itself can be a form of security. No single honeypot of data to attack. They use cryptographic methods, encryption, and consensus mechanisms to secure the network and data. But yes, securing the individual nodes and the network communications is paramount and complex. A compromised node can potentially cause issues, though protocols are designed to isolate or penalize bad actors.
It sounds like there are significant technical hurdles. You mentioned their token earlier, FULA. How does that fit into this whole picture beyond just rewarding node operators?
The FULA token seems pretty central to their entire ecosystem. It's not just for rewards. It's also the currency used to asterisk pay times for the services on the network, storage, compute, etc. So businesses wanting to use Functionland would need FULA tokens. This creates demand. And often, these tokens are also used for governance, meaning token holders get some say in the future direction of the network, protocol upgrades, and things like that.
And the tokenomics. Is it inflationary?
From what I've read, they seem to have designed it with a capped total supply, which is generally seen as a positive thing to prevent runaway inflation. The emission of new tokens, the rewards for node operators, is reportedly tied to actual network usage and resource provision. So, the more the network is used, the more rewards are distributed, up to that cap. This aims to incentivize growth but maintain scarcity.
Okay, that makes sense. Build the network, reward the contributors, use the token for transactions and governance. It's a familiar Web3 playbook, but applied to physical hardware infrastructure. Are there any big names or experts who are validating this approach? That always helps build confidence.
Definitely. And yes, they do have some notable figures involved or speaking positively about them. Ben Goertzel from SingularityNet, a very well-known figure in the AI space, has commented on how Functionland's FX blocks could provide crucial, distributed resources needed for decentralized AI development, which is his focus.
Goertzel's nod is significant in the AI world.
Indeed. And on the investment side, their seed funding round was led by Outlier Ventures, which is a major venture capital firm specializing in Web3 and decentralized tech. Jamie Burke from Outlier specifically mentioned that Functionland is tackling real-world problems and isn't just based on speculative hype, which is refreshing to hear in this space.
Okay, having SingularityNet's founder and a lead investment from Outlier Ventures certainly adds weight. It suggests there's perceived substance behind the ambitious claims. Have they actually demonstrated this works in practice? Any real-world examples or case studies?
Yes, this is where it gets more concrete. There are a couple of case studies often mentioned. One involved a healthcare group migrating a substantial amount of medical imaging data, we're talking like 800 terabytes, onto Functionland's infrastructure.
Whoa, 800 terabytes of asterisk medical times data? That's a serious test case, especially considering privacy regulations like HIPAA or GDPR.
Exactly. And apparently the outcome was that they managed to cut their storage costs by over half compared to their previous cloud provider, while still meeting those strict data privacy requirements. This suggests their architecture can handle sensitive data securely and cost-effectively, at least in this instance.
That's quite an impressive result if it scales. Any other examples?
There was another one mentioned involving a streaming media company, I think based in Asia. They reportedly used Functionland's integrated CDN, the content delivery network part, to distribute their video content. The claim was a significant reduction in buffering rates during peak viewing times compared to their previous setup with a major, traditional CDN provider.
Less buffering is always a win for users. So it seems technically viable in specific cases and is showing practical benefits. Let's circle back to the hurdles, though. You mentioned scalability and security. What about regulations? That's often the elephant in the room for crypto and decentralized projects.
Absolutely. Scaling a decentralized network smoothly, especially one involving heterogeneous hardware like FX blocks nodes across the globe, is technically very tough. They talk about planned upgrades like network sharding to handle growth, but implementing that effectively is complex. On the regulatory front, you're right, it's critical. They've strategically established their foundation in Switzerland.
Why Switzerland?
Switzerland, particularly the canton of Zug, has generally developed clearer regulations and guidelines for blockchain and crypto-related projects compared to many other jurisdictions, like the US, where things are still quite murky. Setting up there provides a degree of regulatory clarity. They're also reportedly participating in regulatory pilot programs in Switzerland, which suggests they're trying to work proactively with regulators.
Okay, setting up in Switzerland seems like a calculated move given the global regulatory patchwork. It feels like they've at least thought times through some of these major potential roadblocks. Technical scaling, security, regulation.
It appears so. They seem to be genuinely trying to build this bridge between the decentralized ideals of Web3 user control, data ownership, open participation, and the practical needs of businesses, primarily offering significant cost savings and greater control over their data and infrastructure.
So looking ahead, Mark, paint the big picture for us. If Functionland, or projects like it, gain significant traction, what does that mean for the future of cloud computing and AI development?
Well, in the optimistic scenario, it could mean several things. Firstly, increased competition could drive down prices across the entire cloud market, even forcing the big players to adjust their pricing. Secondly, it genuinely democratizes access to becoming an infrastructure provider. You don't need billions to build data centers. You could potentially participate with a few nodes.
And for AI specifically?
For AI, the implications are quite interesting. The potential for more privacy-preserving AI techniques, because data doesn't have to be centrally pooled, is one aspect. Another is potentially lowering the cost barrier for training large models or running complex AI tasks, making powerful AI tools more accessible to smaller companies, researchers, or even individuals. Plus, their focus on nodes being potentially closer to users aligns well with the growth trend of edge computing.
Democratizing access, lowering costs, enhancing privacy. Those are certainly compelling arguments, but it still feels like a massive David versus Goliath situation against the established hyperscalers.
Oh, without a doubt. It's a colossal challenge. They need to consistently prove reliability and performance at a massive scale. maintain robust network security against sophisticated threats, navigate the constantly evolving global regulatory landscape, and perhaps most importantly, convince conservative enterprise clients to trust a fundamentally different, decentralized model for their critical infrastructure. That trust factor is huge.
So, the jury's still out, but the potential is there.
Exactly. The early traction they've shown with the FX block shipments and that large waitlist, the claimed cost advantages, and the backing from figures like Gertzel and firms like Outlier Ventures make Functionland a project worth watching very, very closely. But the path ahead is steep and full of ifs.
Definitely. Functionland, aiming to decentralize the very backbone of the modern internet, and AI using DePIN for hardware and DePAI for computation, all while promising lower costs and more user control. It ties together so many threads we talk about on this show.
You summed it up perfectly, Jenny. They have the ambitious vision, some early proof points with the nodes and case studies, strong financial targets, and key partnerships. Whether they can overcome the technical and market hurdles remains to be seen, but the potential impact if they succeed, or even just push the industry, could be quite substantial.
Well, consider my curiosity officially stoked. We'll have to keep an eye on Functionland and how their journey unfolds. It raises so many questions about the future we're building. You know, listeners, we'd actually love to hear your thoughts on this. Does the idea of decentralized cloud storage and AI compute excite you? Or do the concerns about reliability and security outweigh the potential benefits? Let us know on our social channels or community forum.
Yeah, great idea, Jenny. I'd be fascinated to hear the listeners' takes. It's one of those convergence points where different tech trends, decentralization, AI, hardware, tokenomics, all meet. And that's usually where the most interesting, and sometimes messy, developments happen.
All right. That's all the time we have for today on Tech Explorers. A big thanks to Mark for guiding us through the complex but fascinating world of Functionland and decentralized infrastructure.
Anytime, Jenny. Always fun to dive into the deep end of this stuff.
And thanks to all of you for listening. Join us next time as we explore another intriguing corner of the tech world. Until then, stay curious.